She was a beloved pastor's wife, known for her kindness and strong faith, but behind the scenes, Mica Miller's life was unraveling in a web of emotional abuse, betrayal, and an estranged marriage. When she was found dead at a remote park, the authorities ruled it as suicide. But is there more to this story? Join us as we dive into the mysterious circumstances, shocking allegations, and the unanswered questions surrounding the tragic death of Mica Miller.
Mica Miller's story is one that merges the profound impact of faith, personal struggle, and tragedy. As the wife of John Paul J.P. Miller, a pastor at Solid Rock Church in South Carolina, Mica was a significant figure in her church community. However, behind the public facade of spiritual leadership and service lay a deeply troubled marriage and a series of escalating incidents that culminated in her untimely death in April 2024. While officially ruled as a self-induced death, the circumstances surrounding her passing have left many questions and sparked deep grief among those who knew her.
Mica Miller was born around 1994 and grew up with strong ties to her faith. Her involvement in the church started early, and she found her calling in worship and women's ministry. In 2018, she married J.P. Miller, who was also deeply involved in ministry. Together, they took on leadership roles at Solid Rock Church, with J.P. serving as the pastor and Mica leading various outreach efforts.
J.P. was described as a charismatic leader known for his powerful sermons and influence within the congregation. However, friends and close associates began noticing cracks in their relationship. While Mica continued to pour her energy into helping others, she reportedly struggled with personal issues behind closed doors. As their marriage progressed, Mica and J.P. faced increasing tension, particularly surrounding issues of control and emotional well-being. Friends have described J.P. as a narcissist with a twisted mind, citing behaviors that made Mica's life difficult. In early 2023, these problems came to a head, leading to their separation.
The separation of Mica and J.P. was not just a private matter, it became entangled in a legal and public dispute. By January 2023, Mica and J.P. were officially separated, and by October they filed for divorce. Their estrangement deepened when Mica became increasingly vocal about feeling unsafe, accusing J.P. of harassment. A significant incident occurred in February 2024 when Mica was involuntarily hospitalized. She believed J.P. had orchestrated this, alleging that he had taken her car keys and personal items during the hospitalization. She also claimed that he placed a GPS tracker on her vehicle to monitor her movements. These claims were supported by a police report filed after Mica found the device on her car.
So today my heart's a little heavy. I've had a lot of women that have reached out to me about situations of abuse. And I just want to tell you what a lot of people have told me lately and reminded me, because I think I forgot. I knew, but I pushed it in the back of my head just because of my situation. But you are the bride of Christ. Before anybody else's bride, male or female, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what gender you are. Abuse is abuse. And you are the bride of Christ. And my Bible says that he took all the abuse you could think of for you so that you didn't have to live that life of slavery and bondage and pain. Jesus took it all for you. So you don't have to stay in a abusive relationship, whether that's somebody forcing you to take illegal drugs or alcohol abuse or physical abuse, psychological abuse.
The couple's legal battle intensified when Mica sought a restraining order against J.P., fearing for her safety. She described a pattern of manipulation, emotional abuse, and controlling behavior. Friends echoed these sentiments, describing J.P. as the worst narcissist, and alleging that he used his influence in the church to exert control over Mica. By this point, the relationship between J.P. and Mica had completely disintegrated, with both parties accusing the other of harassment. J.P. in turn filed complaints against Mica, claiming she had been stalking and harassing him online.
April 27, 2024 marked a tragic turning point. On that day, Mica was found dead at Lumber River State Park in North Carolina, having succumbed to a gunshot wound. Earlier in the day, video footage captured Mica purchasing a handgun from a pawn shop in Myrtle Beach. She had also searched for national parks near me on her phone, which suggested she was seeking a secluded place to go.
According to reports, a fisherman at the park heard someone crying, followed by the sound of a gunshot. The authorities later discovered Mica's body near the water, along with the handgun she had purchased, whose serial number matched the gun box found in her vehicle. In addition, receipts from the pawn shop and a convenience store confirmed her whereabouts that day. The Robeson County Sheriff's Office officially ruled Mica's death as self-inflicted. Their investigation, which involved interviews, physical evidence, and surveillance footage, pointed to this conclusion. However, some of Mica's friends and family remained skeptical, feeling that the narrative did not align with her personality and the events leading up to her death.
Sunday, October 8, 2023. Mica Miller and her husband John Paul Miller, a pastor from Solid Rock Church, filed for divorce. February 8, 2024. Mica's involuntary hospitalized for 48 hours. Wednesday, February 21, 2024. Mica calls police and alleges her ex-husband stole her car while she was hospitalized. She tells the officer she has known her husband since she was 10 years old and that he, quote, groomed her, end quote, while she worked for him at Solid Rock Church until they were wed in 2017. John Paul tells the cops his wife suffers from, quote, episodes, end quote. Since the car's marital property, no charges were filed. Monday, March 11, 2024. 2 incidents are filed with authorities naming Mica as a victim. She calls the police after finding her tire slashed with a piece of metal. It was later identified as a tire deflation device available for purchase online. Mechanics then find a GPS device attached to her car. Wednesday, March 13, 2024. Someone at Solid Rock Church files a police report alleging Mica transferred donation funds from the church's Zelle and Cash App accounts to her personal account. Mica leaves her apartment in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, shortly after noon and heads to a pawn shop to buy a gun. 12:34 p.m. Mica leaves the pawn shop and travels on a highway, stopping at a gas station to buy gas and a drink. She heads toward North Carolina. 2:54 p.m. After about an hour and a half, Mica calls 911 from a park over the state line about 33 miles away from the gas station and says she plans to end her own life.
Tell me what's happened. I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
3:03 p.m. Deputies with the Sheriff's Office head to Lumber River State Park, contact the park rangers, and begin a search within 30 minutes. Specialized units searching for Mica from the air are deployed. 3:50 p.m. Detectives are approached by someone fishing in the area who says they heard crying followed by a gunshot. They also found a bag a few feet from the water's edge with Mica's ID inside of it. 4:23 p.m. A kayaker in the area calls 911 to report a body in the water. A perimeter is created to secure the area for an investigation. Within the hour, the chief of detectives arrives and the medical examiner is called. 5:54 p.m. Crime scene investigation technician begins taking photos of the area, and they found Mica's car. Inside the car, investigators found a gun case in the passenger seat and ammunition in the center console. The receipt for the weapon and her gas station stop are found. 7:11 p.m. A gun is discovered in the water at the park. Its serial number matches the case found in Mica's car. Tuesday, May 2nd, 2024. John Paul Miller sits down with WPDE for an interview. During the interview, he mentioned some of the struggles he thought Mica had with mental health.
So over the years since we've been married, some people struggle with high blood pressure, some struggle with diabetes, her struggle was with mental health. And whenever she stayed on her lithium, things were amazing. She'd come off sometimes and things would get a little unusual. Per her doctors, they told her even just recently they had written that she was homicidal, and She had struggled with suicide before, and each time, helped her through it, took her to her doctor, and we got through it, and everything was fine. And so this past time was still a shock, an incredible shock.
Sunday, May 5th, 2024. Friends and family rally outside Solid Rock Church. Some in Mica's family dispute the manner of death described by her estranged husband.
This has to be at least looked into deeply. There's got to be some accountability here because it's a tragic life was lost, and it's not just as simple as somebody had some mental issues.
A memorial service honoring her life followed the rally. Monday, May 6, 2024. The medical examiner releases Mica's cause of death. They conclude that she died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Mica's family meets with deputies about the investigation. John Paul asked the sheriff's office to meet with him in South Carolina. The investigation team said they did not plan to cross the state lines.
While law enforcement ruled out foul play, many people close to Mica have questioned the circumstances surrounding her death. Friends who had seen her shortly before she died described her as an amazing woman who was full of life and compassion. They recalled her exhaustion from giving so much of herself to others, but were surprised that she would take her own life. Mica's friends also expressed concern about JP's alleged affair and his controlling behavior, speculating that these factors may have contributed to her tragic end.
Adding to the complexity, JP was in Charleston, South Carolina, with a romantic partner at the time of Mica's death, which the police confirmed through video evidence and other reports. While there were online speculations about his involvement, authorities ultimately cleared him of any direct role in Mica's death. JP's response to Mica's death was controversial. During a sermon following her passing, he referred to her death as self-induced and attributed it to her mental health struggles. He asked his congregation to pray for him and his children as they navigated this painful time.
Like holding a grudge, don't do it because it affects others. When you feel like being stingy, don't do it because it affects others. When you feel like, just throwing in the towel and taking the easy way out, don't do it because it affects more than just your life. It affects the people around us. Al Capone, right? Some of y'all Northerners remind me of Al Capone. Anyway, so Al Capone, he was in charge of the mafia, right? Well, he had a lawyer. His lawyer's name was Easy Eddie, which I wouldn't mind having him as a lawyer. But anyway, Easy Eddie had no integrity. He would do anything to keep Capone out of jail. He was very successful, and he was compensated greatly for his efforts. In other words, he was making an eternal decision versus an earthly decision. And a lot of our decisions we make nowadays, it's like, what feels good right now? What can I do now? But some of the decisions you make, you may not see them on earth, that the good things come on earth, but they're eternal decisions. We're not going to do an altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up, and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can, so y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next little bit, because I don't want to have. I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks, I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away, and it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina, and we're gonna have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can. I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come. But just keep our family in your prayers. And I'm going to let Pastor Randall, my bishop, he can pray. I get a microphone, he'll pray out. And if you have anything you want to share as well, I appreciate it.
Despite the official ruling, many people who knew Mica continue to wrestle with the unanswered questions. Her friends have voiced concerns that her death may not have been as straightforward as it appears. Some believe that the emotional toll of her relationship with JP and the stress of their ongoing legal battle could have pushed her to the edge.
To this, a waitress in South Carolina shared this receipt with us from a customer she served on February 23rd. Look closely. You see, the customer was John Paul Miller, JP Miller, as he's been called. He left that waitress a huge tip, along with his phone number and a smiley face. This was just 2 months before his wife, Mica, filed for divorce. The waitress, who we're referring to only by her first name, Christiana, reached out to John Paul a few days later and had a casual text exchange with him. Afterward, though, she hit the brakes, she says, after some red flags surfaced about him. And then, last week, after Mica herself, Christiana reached out to him yet again, not revealing that she'd made the connection between him and his wife. And she was surprised at his response, to say the least. Christiana joins us now. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Let's just get right to it. You most recently texted him after you heard his wife was dead. What surprised you about his response?
Honestly, it didn't really surprise me all that much. I kind of suspected that it wasn't going to be what you would expect from a grieving husband.
What did he say?
I asked him if anything was new, and he more or less said, yes, lots new, LOL. I'll text later.
LOL? Laugh out loud?
Yes.
All right. And it's at that point that you said, okay, no more with this guy, right?
Actually, I was pretty aware of things from the beginning. I had some suspicions. There were some red flags. I did some research before I even texted him. And then after I did, I spoke with a friend of mine whose friend had a very negative experience, a mortifying experience, really, with him and his church.
What happened?
And that's her story to tell. I know that she witnessed some things that were not appropriate and faced some harassment when she tried to speak out about it.
So let's go back to, I want to show up that receipt again for that bill. When you waited on him, was he by himself?
He was with another man.
Okay, and we can see here the bill, he leaves you a $20 tip, is that what it is?
Yes, it was almost a 50% tip.
A 50% tip. Was it clear to you what he meant by leaving a tip like that and with his phone number and a smiley face?
I think it was pretty clear.
He wanted you to call him.
I would assume that's the implication.
All right. Then you guys exchanged a couple text messages in which he repeatedly asks you to send pictures of yourself.
Yes.
Including bikini pictures, and he called you super hot.
Yes.
Okay. At this point, do you think he's a single guy? Do you know he's married? What do you know about him at this point?
A lot of the things especially after the point that I talked to my friend, I was well aware. I hadn't confirmed everything or all of my suspicions until I talked to my friend. But after that point, I was pretty aware of what was up. And I feel like we have a rampant problem in our country and especially in our churches with this type of behavior. And I feel that it needs to be brought to light. So I saw an opportunity and I took it.
You got an opportunity to try and get proof that he was propositioning other women while married to his wife.
And the fact that he was a pastor approaching people in this manner.
Yeah. Was there any doubt in your mind what he was asking you for?
No, not at all.
And though JP had an alibi and it was verified, and police had receipts and videos, and Mica's own words pointing to suicide, Mica's family and Mica's friends, and seemingly half of the internet, believed that John Paul of the Solid Rock Church was responsible for Mica's death. If he didn't pull the trigger himself, the theory went, he drove his poor wife to do it. JP has not been charged with any crime related to Mica Miller's death. He also hasn't done much talking about all of this outside of a church service and a couple of text messages, but now he is talking.
Why now? Why the decision to speak now after all this time has passed? Where's your head at?
Well, I think part of it is I finally got the approval of my attorneys to do so. They, the ones working on the defamation cases, they said it's easier to win a defamation case the more the people talk. And so they've been collecting a lot of evidence over the past while. And also I think that now that some of the emotion has died down in the world and with people that are led by their feelings, I think now they deserve to hear some logic and some truth and make their own assessment. So.
Do you miss her?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Did you see this coming?
Yes, but it doesn't change at all the power of the pain of reality. I saw it coming for years. I told them for years this would happen over, and I said if she gets off her medicine, is the next thing. She tried it in the past, but with me, she always remained okay with me. She was on her meds with me. She was healthy and happy. And even if she did get low or stop taking her medicine, I would help her get back on it, and things would be fine. Without me and with her family, she's off meds, and she committed. And I told them this would happen over and over again. I tried my best to stop her from getting a gun. I went to judges. I have copies of all the police. I talked to her counselor, the pastor she was going to, her family, her friends. I told them all, don't let her get a gun. Do whatever it takes, prevent her from getting a gun. And when she was with me, she was never able to go that far. And I still haven't really grasped it. Like, it hasn't. I kind of keep putting off the reality of it, and I try not to think about it as much as I can.
What was going on in your marriage the week Mica died?
The week she died, we didn't talk that entire week. I'd emailed her several times that week, and my regular emails are sending her letters telling her that I love her. And she came over to the house. The last time I saw her was a few weeks before she passed away. We spent about 4 hours together. And we hugged and kissed, and she was in and out of psychotic conversations. She would say, one thing about double agents that are following her. That was one of the phrases she would use when she was off her meds, double agents. And the other phrase she would say, she wants to come home so bad, but her family won't let her. She told me she wanted to live in Africa and asked me if I'd live with her. I said, sure, if you take your medicine, And so she told me if I'd give her some money and if I would write her a letter saying certain things in this letter that she would take her medicine. And so I tried that, and but she desperately wanted to come home. She was just so afraid her family would disown her. And so the week before she passed away, I probably emailed her maybe 7 or 8 times that week just saying, I love you. You need your lithium. Don't forget who you are when you're on medicine versus who you are when you're off. She had lost 40 pounds in a month, and nobody that was in her life thought to take care of her. Nobody. She was living with a former registered nurse. Her family, quote unquote, were taking care of her. She lost 40 pounds in 1 month, and no one thought she needed help. She was talking about living in Africa. No one thought she needed help. She's making videos on Facebook, and if you see the videos, you know it's not her because she has a different cadence, a different tone, a different amount of words per minute when she's healthy and on medicine than when she's off. And the way she was even looking into space when she's taking those videos, you knew she was delusional. And if somebody loved her enough to take her to a professional and say, okay, this woman says she's being abused, or this woman says, this, or she's lost 40 pounds in a month. If someone thought I need to take her to a professional, that professional would have known that she needed medicine. And the reason I know that's true is because I took her a few weeks before she passed away. I took her to probate court. And in 3 minutes time, she went in, she walked back out. When I went in, they said, your wife is mentally ill and she needs medicine desperately. And I said, okay, let's do it. Let's get her the medicine. Let's get her help. And they said she's not a danger to anybody in society, so we can't force her to do it. But if one of her family members or friends had taken note of the way she was acting and seen what was happening to her physically and taken her to just one professional, they could have saved her life.
Bring us through your last day. You said soccer. Do you have any documentation that they were there?
Oh, you're asking because, okay, I got you. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I can't believe people. Oh, my Lord. So, yeah, I was with about 100 people. We had dinner that night. We were all together at the soccer fields that day. Afterwards, after the soccer game, somebody was with me the entire time, who I can't name due to legal purposes, but I will say it's somebody that I love more than anything else on planet Earth.
Man or woman?
Young person that I cannot name due to legal purposes, but somebody that I am responsible for and love very, very much. And that person was with me, and we went shopping in Charleston, and we got food in Charleston, and there's all the receipts from that throughout the time. I think we might have gotten gas too, and then made it back to Myrtle Beach. And I was just actually looking today at emails that I sent her that day. I sent her 4 emails that day, and I just noticed today that 2 of those she wasn't able to read because it was after it had happened.
The attorney representing Mica's family, Regina Ward, told me she watched the interview on News Nation 3 times. She says there were a number of lies, alarming body language, and deflecting. She thinks John Paul painted an unrealistic picture of how sick Mica was and says it's unfortunately what many victims of abuse experience.
What were your first thoughts when you were listening to that interview?
Yes. Got you.
Before the interview even started, John Paul Miller broke down in tears.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
As Mica was depressed, but she wasn't aware of any suicidal thoughts.
He contributed to that. I mean, you only had to watch the interview and you're exhausted by the end of it. And guess what? You only got to see the parts they clipped. Could you imagine sitting there through the whole thing and then spend that 7 years of your life in your 20s?
Ward says she wasn't surprised John Paul did the interview, but would be surprised if John Paul's lawyers gave him permission. During the interview, John Paul denied any allegations of abuse towards Mica, but Ward says Mica kept a detailed journal of John Paul's alleged controlling and manipulative behavior.
So what was your thoughts when he had said flat out, I never abused her?
Yeah, I was incensed. I was like the audacity. And guess what? No one's buying it. There's too much evidence that shows otherwise.
Ward says many times victims of abuse are too afraid to speak out. She says she can imagine that was the case for Mica.
The one that's being abused is humiliated by it. They don't want anybody to know. Now, become the pastor's wife. You really don't want anybody to know that.
And because of that, Mica's family is now working to push forward Mica's Law or the Coercive Control Bill. It would strengthen protections for victims who experience forms of abuse like financial, mental, and emotional. She says this situation has connected with so many people for a reason. The family decided to withdraw their request to become a special administrator over Mica's estate. They say this is justice for Mica. Both John Paul, Mica's family, and their lawyers met during a probate hearing today after John Paul filed a motion to have Mica's sister Sierra removed as special administrator. In about 20 minutes, both parties agreed to withdraw that request. Regina Ward, attorney for Mica's family, and Russell Long for John Paul say the families want to set their differences aside and honor Mica. Ward says the focus is now Mica's Law to strengthen protections for victims of abuse across South Carolina.
Mica Miller's death has left a profound void in her community. She was remembered for her kindness, generosity, and unwavering faith, qualities that had made her a beloved figure at Solid Rock Church. Her friends recall her as someone who gave endlessly to those around her, even when she was struggling with her own burdens. Her tragic story also brings attention to issues of emotional abuse, control, and the pressures faced by women in religious communities. Mica's friends have spoken out about the difficulties she endured in her marriage, drawing attention to the darker side of relationships that may be hidden behind public roles like that of a pastor's wife.
In the wake of her death, Mica's friends and supporters have called for greater awareness of mental health and domestic abuse issues, especially within religious communities where such problems are often overlooked. Mica's story is a reminder of the importance of paying attention to the signs of emotional distress even when they are not immediately apparent.
Beach police arrested Miller last night after a confrontation with a Justice for Mica protester outside the Market Common Church. Now, this comes nearly a week after Miller's home was searched by the FBI and 2 days after people were seen removing furniture from Solid Rock Church.
Stalking and harassment have been 2 words said many times now related to John Paul Miller, Solid Rock, and his late wife Mica, who died by suicide in April. Protesters have been outside Solid Rock for months, chanting justice for Mica, including Wednesday right before the confrontation.
They've driven the church to death, and they're trying to drive him to death.
This between John Paul Miller and one protester following him. The protester, Sandra Carone, told us Miller turned around, tapped the brim of her hat twice with his phone, and walked away. Filed multiple stalking and harassment police reports involving John Paul. Ward says the U.S. Attorney General's office asked her months ago to turn over any documents related to her client, Mica. She says those documents are what helped the FBI get a search warrant to search John Paul's home recently. Ward says this charge may only be a misdemeanor, but it could impact whether John Paul gets bond or not if he ever faces federal criminal charges.
But at the end of the day, it sure is going to help this case going forward, and he might as well get used to it. We're not going away. We're not going away until he goes away.
Ward says the FBI is asking victims to come forward as they continue with their investigation. She says you can reach out to the FBI or her office. We've also reached out to John Paul, who asked us to never contact him again.
There are lots of rumors and theories surrounding Mica's death, from foul play to harassment and even the alleged affair and the gun purchase. Some believe that Mica did not suffer from mental health issues and that JP was extremely manipulative and coerced Mica to commit the action she did. What do you think? Do you believe any of the rumors or theories? Let us know in the comments below.